This is a restricted area. Military funeral. 4-star general. No clearance, no entry. The guard barely looked at her. Just another soldier in a faded uniform. Out of place. Out of time. She didn't argue. She just stood there, quietly, holding a wilted flower. Inside the gates, cameras flashed. Medals gleamed. Flags rose for a national hero. No one noticed the woman outside. No one, except the general who stopped the entire ceremony, walked out and saluted her. Welcome to Women Kurger Stories, where tales of honor and sacrifice are remembered. Let's uncover what really happened. Before we begin, tell us, where are you watching from? And if you believe courage still matters, help keep their legacy alive. The rain had stopped, but the air over Arlington Ridge still smelled of thunder. Rows of flags lined the road to the National Cemetery, snapping sharply in the wind. Camera flashes flared against polished metals and black dress uniforms. It was a state funeral. General Nathaniel Ashridge, age 65, the youngest 4-star in his generation, gone after a sudden illness. Every corner of the service was sealed. Every name checked twice. Outside the steel gate stood a woman in an old green uniform. Her jacket was clean but faded, the insignia dull, the stitching worn thin along the cuffs. In her hand, she held a single white lily wrapped in a strip of cloth that looked older than she was. Private Eli Bowman, barely 22, watched her from his post. "Ma'am, this area is restricted," he said, lowering his rifle slightly. "Only registered guests are cleared past this line." The woman nodded once. "I was family once," she said softly. Her voice carried no anger, no pride, just truth. Bowman frowned, uncertain. "I'm sorry. Orders are strict. You'll have to step back." She obeyed without another word, moving to the edge of the fence, eyes fixed on the flags beyond. Inside the gate, the ceremony had already begun. Bugles echoed across the grass, deep and slow. Every motion inside the perimeter was timed to the second honor guard, casket team, folded flag. No one looked toward the woman outside. Not the press, not the officers, not the aides adjusting microphones. Only one man noticed. Colonel Drew Marston, chief aide to General Malcolm Trent, caught a glimpse through the bars. At first, just a shape then, the small silver emblem on her sleeve, a broken arrow pointing east. He froze. That symbol hadn't been seen in years. He leaned toward the general standing beside the casket. "Sir," he whispered, "look at the gate." Trent followed his gaze. For a moment, the ceremony continued, the hymn, the low murmur of prayers. Then Trent's eyes locked on the woman outside. The name surfaced before he could stop it. Keene. The air around him seemed to still. He remembered a younger version of her, dust-covered, shouting over explosions in the Helmand Valley. Echo 9 Engineering Battalion, Operation Iron Wind, the one who pulled their captain out alive. Sir Marston pressed quietly. "What should we do?" Trent didn't answer. He handed his ceremonial saber to the nearest guard. "Hold this." Every lens shifted as he stepped away from the formation. The chaplain's voice faltered. The band missed a note. Trent walked straight down the carpeted aisle between ranks of officers, boots striking wet ground. Outside. Bowman stiffened when he saw the general approaching. He tried to intercept. "Sir." With respect, Trent brushed past him and gripped the gate latch himself. The hinges groaned as the iron bars opened. Wind rushed in, carrying the scent of rain and metal. Laurel Keene lifted her head. For the first time, her eyes met his. Trent stood at attention before her, not behind the gate, but in front of it. He removed his cap, raised his hand, and saluted one clean motion, precise and deliberate. Every soldier inside the field froze. "Sergeant Laurel Keene," he said, voice carrying over the crowd. "We've been waiting for you." She blinked once, surprised. "You don't have to do that, sir," she murmured. "With all due respect," Trent replied. "Yes, I do." He turned slightly, signaling Marston. The colonel came forward, carrying a polished wooden box wrapped in a folded flag. Trent's voice lowered, just enough for her to hear. General Ashridge wanted you to take him home. His final request. The words hit like the first sound after silence. Laurel looked down at the box. The grain of the wood reflected a faint red from the flags behind him. Her fingers tightened around the lily until its stem bent. She breathed in, steady, almost soundless. "I thought they forgot," she said. Trent shook his head. "We never did." Behind them. The press lowered their cameras. The bandmaster hesitated, baton hovering mid-air. Every conversation in the field faded to nothing. Trent stepped aside, leaving the gate wide open. The woman who once built bridges under fire now crossed the threshold on her own. The ceremony, meant for a general, waited for her first step. The flags shifted in the breeze. The sky cleared just enough for sunlight to strike the lily in her hand. And as she entered the field, the crowd understood without needing words. The crowd stood motionless as Laurel crossed the grass. Every camera stayed lowered. The only sound was her boots sinking into the damp ground. Trent walked beside her, his eyes fixed ahead, not at the casket. When they reached the canopy, Colonel Marston stepped forward, holding the wooden box in both hands. The flag wrapped around it shimmered faintly under the gray light. Trent's voice was quiet but firm. "General Ashridge wanted you to have this." Laurel stared at the engraved brass plate, his name, rank, and a single line beneath Echo 9 Engineering Battalion. The world around her blurred for a moment. Her pulse slowed, and the sounds of the funeral faded into memory. Helmand, Afghanistan, 2007, Operation Iron Wind. The flashback hit like a concussion. Sand, smoke, sirens, a tunnel collapse. She was 23 then, the youngest combat engineer in Echo 9. The order had come through too, trapped inside the Bravo tunnel. Enemy fire inbound. Laurel grabbed her tool pack and ran toward the smoke before anyone could stop her. She remembered the heat, the metallic taste in the air, the roar of detonations rolling through the valley. Corporal Trent had shouted for her to wait. She didn't. The entrance had already caved halfway. She crawled in with a flashlight clenched between her teeth, her uniform scraping against twisted rebar. Inside, she found Captain Nathaniel Ashridge pinned beneath a steel beam, unconscious, chest bleeding through his vest. "Hold on, sir," she'd whispered, voice shaking. A second soldier was still breathing beside him, crying for help. Laurel cut through the debris with her torch until her gloves smoked. She wrapped a pressure bandage around Ashridge's ribs, tied it tight with the end of her scarf, and forced him upright. When the first mortar hit, she threw herself over him. The explosion slammed her head into the dirt after that. Only ringing. A white fog. Silence. Trent's hands had reached in, pulling them out one by one. He'd yelled her name over the static of the radio, but she couldn't hear him. The last thing she saw before blacking out was Ashridge gasping, blood on his lips. When she woke hours later, the sun had risen. They told her the captain would live. Ashridge himself had come to see her before she was evacuated. His voice was weak, but his words were clear. "If I ever fall, you'll walk me home. That's an order." "Sergeant?" She nodded, not realizing how long it would take to fulfill it. Echo 9 disbanded the following month. Half their records were destroyed in a data fire at Camp Northview. Laurel never went back to active duty. Back at the funeral, Trent was still speaking, his voice carrying across the crowd. "He never forgot you, Keene. Not once. In his last days, he talked about Iron Wind, about a sergeant who built a bridge under fire and pulled him out with her bare hands." Laurel kept her gaze on the wooden box, her reflection warping in the polished surface. "I wasn't alone," she said quietly. Trent's expression softened. "No. But you were the one who went back. For a second." Both of them stood there, two soldiers bound by one memory that refused to fade. A gust of wind pushed through the tent, stirring the flags. The scent of damp grass filled the air, sharp and cold. Laurel adjusted her posture, the same way she had in formation years ago. "Let's finish this properly," Trent said. He gestured toward the main walkway leading to the burial platform. Honor guards shifted in perfect symmetry, forming a corridor of silence. Laurel lifted the box herself. Its weight was light, but her arms trembled from something deeper. Step by step, she walked forward, Trent half a pace behind. Every soldier along the path straightened. A captain removed his hat. Somewhere in the distance, the bagpipes fell quiet mid-note. The crowd parted as she approached the stage. She could feel hundreds of eyes on her back, curious, unsure, but respectful. She kept her focus on the flag that draped the stand ahead. Under the canopy, the general's widow rose from her seat. Her voice cracked as she spoke. "You must be the one he wrote about." Laurel stopped in front of her. "I only did my job, ma'am," she said, her tone calm but heavy. The woman smiled faintly through tears. "He said you'd say that." Laurel placed the box on the white cloth and stepped back. Trent moved to her side again, his expression unreadable. The crowd waited for instruction, but none came. The moment felt suspended, like the world was holding its breath. The wind picked up again, sweeping through the rows of uniforms. Trent climbed the platform, eyes scanning the silent crowd. Laurel stood a few steps behind him, her hands clasped, the white lily pressed to her palm. The microphone hissed softly. Every officer, aide, and soldier waited for the official eulogy. But Trent didn't open the folder in front of him. He looked out at the crowd, then down at the box resting on the cloth. His voice carried without effort, steady and raw. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "we gather to honor a general. But before he ever wore those stars, he was a soldier saved by another." Murmurs rippled briefly through the lines, then fell silent. Trent continued. "In 2007, during Operation Iron Wind, a young combat engineer risked her life under fire to pull 2 men from a collapsing tunnel. One of them was Nathaniel Ashridge." Gasps were swallowed quickly. Laurel didn't move. Her eyes stayed fixed on the coffin draped in blue and gold. Trent paused, searching for words that wouldn't betray the weight in his chest. She was never recognized. Her unit was disbanded, her record buried under reports and firewalls. But the man we bury today, he never forgot. He turned his head slightly toward her. "She is Sergeant Laurel Keene, Echo 9 Engineering Battalion. She didn't come here for credit. She came to keep a promise." The microphone clicked softly as he stepped back. The air thickened. No one spoke. Even the clouds seemed to hold their breath. Trent gave a brief nod to the honor guard. The bugler raised his trumpet but didn't play yet. Instead, the entire formation shifted. 2 rows of soldiers moved, opening a narrow path from the canopy to the burial ground. The movement was synchronized, quiet, precise, rehearsed for someone else but now belonging to her. Laurel looked to Trent. He gave a single nod. She lifted the box again. The polished wood gleamed against her uniform sleeve, the engraved name catching a faint flash of light. She began to walk. Each step sank slightly into the grass, slow and deliberate. The rhythm of her boots matched the sound of her heartbeat. Behind her, Trent followed, hands clasped behind his back, gaze steady. The line of soldiers stiffened to attention as she passed. Their salutes rose in a wave, right hands snapping to brows, one after another. No one issued an order. They just knew. A gust swept through, stirring the flags overhead. The lily trembled in her hand, petals brushing her sleeve. She didn't look left or right, only forward. The walk felt endless and short at once. Faces blurred, officers, veterans, civilians all watching without a sound. When she reached the flag-draped platform, she paused. For a moment, the world was still. The sky, the crowd, the breath of the wind frozen. Laurel lowered the box onto the pedestal. Her fingers lingered on the wood. "Welcome home, sir," she whispered, so quietly that only the breeze carried it. Then she straightened, her posture flawless, her face unreadable. Trent stepped beside her again, the lines around his eyes deeper now. He drew a slow breath, then gave the command. Sound taps. The first note broke through the air like glass. Long, hollow, piercing. Each rise and fall of the trumpet echoed off the marble walls around them. Laurel didn't flinch. She watched the flag ripple, her hand at her side. The melody faded into silence. Trent turned to her once more. "Sergeant," he said quietly, "he left something for you." He handed her a sealed envelope, edges frayed, the handwriting faint. She hesitated before taking it. The paper felt brittle, as if time itself had worn it thin. Her thumb brushed the corner of a blackened edge burn marks. Trent's voice lowered. He kept it in his safe. "Said it was only to be opened if you made it here yourself." Laurel held it close, the seal cold against her palm. She nodded once. "Understood." Her tone was steady, but her eyes shimmered with something unspoken. Trent stepped back and saluted her. The gesture was crisp, full of meaning no words could reach. Around them, others followed colonels, lieutenants, even the young private by the gate. Laurel returned the salute slowly, then lowered her hand. The last echo of the trumpet drifted away. Only the sound of flags and distant footsteps remained. As the ceremony ended, the crowd dispersed in silence. Laurel stood alone beside the grave, holding the letter and the wilted lily. Her shadow stretched across the grass toward the stone. The rain had long stopped, leaving the grass shining under the pale afternoon sun. The field was empty now. Only the rippling flags and rows of white stones remained. Laurel stood still beside the grave, the sealed envelope in her hand. The crowd had gone. The cameras gone too. She was alone with the silence, the kind that didn't need permission. Slowly, she broke the seal. Inside was a single sheet, handwriting uneven but strong. She read each word aloud, her voice barely above a whisper. "Laurel, you pulled me from the dark once. I couldn't repay that debt in life, so I leave you my last order: keep walking. For those they forgot." Her lips trembled, but no tears came. She folded the paper and slid it inside her jacket, close to her heart. Then she placed the lily at the base of the marble stone. "Rest easy, sir," she said quietly. The wind carried her words across the empty field. A moment later, it was gone, as if the world itself had nodded back. Behind her, footsteps approached on the gravel path. Trent, still in full dress uniform, stopped a few feet away. He looked exhausted, but there was relief in his eyes. "You read it," he said softly. Laurel nodded. "He never changed, did he?" Trent smiled faintly. "Not once." They stood side by side, watching the flags shift in the breeze. "Are you going back to Roanoke?" he asked. "Eventually. But not before I finish something first." He handed her a small folder document stamped with the Defense Department seal. "Ashridge started this before he passed. A fund for veterans rehabilitation. I had the board's approval finalized this morning." Laurel flipped the folder open. At the top, Ashridge Keene Veterans Center. She stared at it, then closed it again. "I didn't ask for this," she said. Trent replied, "That's why it belongs to you." A car horn sounded in the distance, soft and out of place. Laurel looked back toward the main gate. The same young private from earlier Bowman was standing there, hat in hand. Trent noticed too. "You made an impression," he said. "Did I?" Laurel asked. "He volunteered for the center's first program this morning." Laurel smiled for the first time that day. "Maybe the system can still learn," she said. Trent chuckled quietly. "Only if people like you keep teaching it." The general extended his hand. For a moment, she hesitated, then shook it. His grip was firm, respectful, nothing ceremonial about it. "Take care of yourself, Sergeant," he said. She nodded. "You too, sir, and thank you for opening the gate." Trent looked toward the horizon. It was already open. We just needed someone to walk through. Laurel stepped away, her boots crunching softly against the gravel. The path wound past the tall oaks and out toward the parking lot. Each step felt lighter, though the ache in her chest stayed. Later that year, spring returned to Virginia. The new center stood 3 miles from the old base, a low brick building with glass walls and a garden of wildflowers. On the front plaque, carved in bronze dedicated to those once turned away at the gate. Inside, veterans trained in physical therapy, woodworking, and rebuilding prosthetics. Laurel didn't run it. She worked quietly in the background, fixing machines, painting walls, cleaning tools. Her name wasn't printed anywhere, only the echo of her presence. One afternoon, a familiar voice called her name. She turned. It was Bowman, the private, now in civilian clothes. He looked nervous, holding a folder of his own. "Permission to enter, ma'am?" he asked, half smiling. Laurel nodded. "Always." They walked together down the hall lined with photographs, no generals, just soldiers' faces. In the last frame hung a photo of Echo 9. Young, dirt-streaked faces under a torn flag. At the corner of the frame, someone had pinned a single arrow badge bent, tarnished, but intact. Laurel touched the glass lightly. For a moment, the sounds of the center faded, replaced by the wind of another time Hellman's dust, radio static, the pulse of survival. Then it was gone. She walked outside to the courtyard. The sun was setting, painting the sky gold and gray. In the reflection of the glass doors, she saw the inscription again, Ashridge Keene Veterans Center. Her voice was almost a breath. He got his wish after all. The breeze picked up, tugging her hair back like a nod from somewhere unseen. She turned toward the main gate as evening settled. It was open wide and welcoming, and for the first time in years, she smiled without restraint. If you enjoyed the story, consider sending a super chat to help bring more stories like this. Now, click on the video on the screen to hear another story that's just as powerful and captivating with courage, sacrifice, and a choice that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about duty and justice.